Apparently so. And Mike, I would like to have a different answer there, but you keep watching it, and they get off to the 1-3 start, and have the 2 home games against New Orleans and the Giants, and they win those, and you start thinking, okay, maybe they have turned a corner, maybe something's brewing, and they can get this back on track into kind of what we thought they were going to be. And then that game in Carolina the other night just sort of puts you right back into where they were before. That's a good team, and you're playing on the road, but the Eagles did not look like a team in that game that was capable of taking control of the game against a decent opponent, and that was what they were last year. The thing that shocked me most is when you look at it, is that Kelly made all the changes that we've talked endlessly about during the offseason, all those months of analyzing, Bradford instead of Foles, Murray and Ryan Matthews instead of McCoy, the whole secondary being changed, all the moves they made to change the team, basically, and they're playing exactly like they played last season. They can beat okay to mediocre teams, but they cannot beat really good teams. If you're a quality team, they have a really good chance to beat the Eagles. That seemed to be the case last year. It seems to be the case this year. That leaves them kind of middle of the pack. No special, quality about them. A quarterback would be a special quality. Last Sunday night when they took the field against Carolina, late in the game in the fourth quarter, chance to catch the Panthers, and Bradford, goes out there at quarterback, and there was never a moment in that sequence where you thought, boy, Sam Bradford's really got to, lift this team to victory here. I mean, he just got chased around, fumbled. He just looked like a guy who could not possibly win a game like that. So I think you're looking at a 3-4 team, and they're a 3-4 team on merit.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Phil, and I look at Chip Kelly, and it seems like an eerily similar path that Andy was on. Too much on his plate. This team just too much, not enough attention to detail. Penalties, bad calls, not knowing who's on the field. It seems that Chip Kelly has taken too much on too soon. Is that something that you're starting to notice?
It's hard to say that for sure. I mean, I don't think I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't know if I'd come to the conclusion at this point, really, because I mean, a lot of the stuff we're seeing right now, like I said, to me, they look a lot like last year's team in terms of the product and the things that are going on the field. It's a lot of different players. Maybe Kelly underestimated how much time it would take for that much change to kind of, for a team to cohere after that much change, for a team to come together and be able to kind of, find a personality. That's the thing about them. You're walking around the locker room after the game the other night in Charlotte. What they were doing, they were talking to all these different guys. Looks on their faces and the things they were saying, you just got a sense that they look. I mean, they have no feel for this team. They have no real sense of who they are as a team. They don't know if this is their personality, this is who they are, this is their limit, if it's just temporary or fixable, or if it's just going to be like this for the rest of the year. They don't know. I mean, usually players kind of have a feeling by now what their team's about and what they are capable of. This team just doesn't seem to have it. I think that's probably a lot of it. And it may be that, not so much that it's too much for Chip to handle in terms of coaching and picking players. He just might not be good at picking players. I mean, that's not a question of having too much to do. It's a question of a skill set that he's just not particularly good at. We don't know that for sure. But, he said, I'm going to go get Sam Bradford because Sam Bradford has a quick release. He's very accurate. He's exactly the kind of quarterback I need to run my system. He gives us a chance to have an elite quarterback here, which is very hard to find. Well, 7 games in, that does not look at all like the Sam Bradford I've seen for 7 games. I mean, that is not how I would describe Sam Bradford. He looks like the guy who was sort of a middle-of-the-road quarterback in St. Louis before he got hurt. And that just looks like who Sam Bradford is, not the guy that Kelly described at all. On the running backs, he talked about how much better fits they would be in his offense. DeMarco Murray, Ryan Matthews, that they're, decisive, quick hit runners, get right to the hole, make a cut and go. You've seen some of that from Matthews here and there. I don't know if that would up over a lot more playing time. A lot of times guys look really good in limited playing time and then not so good in, having 5 carries a game, for example. But Murray and Matthews do not look to me like wildly better than LaShawn McCoy looked in this offense. So, everything Kelly said about the players that he was getting hasn't really come out on the field. You haven't seen that actually in reality on the field. So it may just be that he's not good at evaluating and picking players. The drafts aren't very impressive the last 2 years. The free agents that they got, they may be poor fits for the offense or the defense or just poor fits in general. Maybe that's a bigger problem than whether it's too much to do. It may just be things that he's not good at doing.
Yeah, and one of the things I look at is this whole situation with, Ryan Matthews, Murray. He says, basically Deuce puts him in. He doesn't say who's in. Is he calling plays not knowing who the personnel is on the field? And that's one of the things I talk about. Does he have too much on his plate and attention to detail? Basically calling plays, not really knowing who he's even calling the play for because he's calling the play. The coach is putting in different guys. He doesn't know who's out there. And it looks like plays that don't fit the personnel that's out on the field all the time.
Yeah, well, there's elements that are kind of convoluted in all this. I mean, if you watch them, it's probably a lot of this is what goes on during commercial breaks, for example, when the ball changes hands. But, the opposing defense goes out on the field. The Eagles' offense gathers at the sideline, and there's 11 guys that are going in. Probably about 15 guys gather in a sort of a huddle on the sideline along where Kelly's standing. And then the 11 guys that are going in at the last, when it's time to go out and get set for the first play of the drive, that group goes out. And then that's the 11 guys that are generally on the field for a whole possession. Sometimes they'll make, situational substitutions. They'll decide to throw Sproles in there for a couple plays or whatever. But, generally, they go out as a group, the 11 guys. That catches the defense kind of off guard. They don't know who the personnel will be, whether it's, 2 tight ends, 1 tight end, 2 backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 wide receivers, et cetera. So Kelly does all that stuff. And so when he starts to call the plays on any given possession, he knows who's in there. He does know who he's calling the plays for. One of his beliefs, and one of his core beliefs in all this, is that he wanted very similar backs in Matthews and Murray so that he could basically call the same plays regardless of who was in there.
Right.
In terms of the running back. No, that doesn't really look like they're that similar.
Right.
When you watch them run the ball, Matthews looks a lot more effective and a lot more aggressive and a lot more assertive, basically. Murray looks a lot more, cautious and not as comfortable. But Kelly wants to have interchangeable parts that can all run the offense well. It doesn't look like he's got that, and that's a separate problem. But he knows who he's calling the plays for when he's actually calling them. The trouble is, they don't seem to have any method for saying, hey, this guy's really, really more effective than that guy in this game. Let's just stick with the hot hand and not, keep trying to get DeMarco Murray more carries or whatever. So, there are problems in there. I don't know whether they're, again, a function of Kelly doing too much or just making some mistakes along the way here.
Well, right, and it goes to, all right, is Chip Kelly, the GM, also influencing Chip Kelly, the coach, because he feels like he has to give Murray more of the carries, where you got a guy that runs for a 63-yard touchdown, and then he's invisible the rest of the game. Now, he goes and tries to explain that he was injured after the 22-yard run, but then they felt okay to put him out there for that 63-yard run and hand him the football. So it doesn't seem like everything's adding up right there.
Yeah, what I was trying to say was that, we asked Chip Kelly about injured players, either guys we see leave the game and who don't return to games or whatever, or guys who may be hurt or seem to be hurt or look like they're hurt, and he never knows anything about injuries. He's like, I know, the trainers tell him whether the guy can play or not. He doesn't really ask any other questions. And this is what he tells us because he doesn't want to give injury information out, and he doesn't want to be talking about that stuff publicly. That's basically it. Then on Monday, he's asked about Ryan Matthews' lack of carries, and all of a sudden he knows exactly when Ryan Matthews got a hamstring injury, and that was exactly the cause for the whole problem, and, that explains everything. So a guy who never knows anything about injuries is suddenly volunteering all this information about an injury because it suits his purposes to explain away why Ryan Matthews wasn't getting any carries. So that's a little bit suspicious to me anyway, and it doesn't really all kind of make sense. I mean, if Matthews got hurt, if you watch the 22-yard run at the end of it, he kind of stretches out to hurdle a player and then he's tackled right after that. So, I mean, that was the kind of place where you could hurt a hamstring, but he gets it right up and walks off the field without any sign of being injured. And then on the 63-yard touchdown run, there's absolutely no evidence that the guy's hurt. I mean, you look, he's outrunning everybody on the Carolina Panthers defense with no problem at all. So something very fishy about all of that. But, Matthews isn't going to say much. Although, after the game, he was at his locker and more available than he has normally been all season, and answered every question. Never mentioned being injured. Never said anything about getting hurt or what was happening. So, yeah, it's very fishy, and it sounds like Chip trying to cover himself a little bit on that. It doesn't really explain anything away, and it doesn't really satisfy anybody who's looking for an explanation.
Talk with Phil Sheridan, ESPN.com's NFL Nation, at Sheridan Scribe on Twitter. Obviously, Bradford is at an interesting crossroad. Now, he's obviously sticking with him. He has announced that. There is a stipulation that if he plays less than 50% of the snaps, that the Eagles would receive a fourth-round pick in return. Phil, do you believe if the Eagles have made their mind up that Bradford is not the guy in 2016, that they should consider making a change and getting that draft choice and at least salvaging something in this deal if they don't think Bradford is the guy?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I guess my general feeling is that a fourth-round pick is not valuable enough. If there was a second-round pick, if they could get that second-round pick back, then maybe I would, go down that road, sort of pull the rug out on this season and kind of move on and just deal with it all. But I don't think a fourth-round pick is going to get you enough to sort of trade off what you'd be doing in terms of your quarterback situation. There is a chance that Bradford continues to play his way out of this and actually becomes something like the guy we saw in the preseason and something like the guy Kelly thought he was going to get in this trade. So the chance of that, to me, outweighs the benefits of getting a fourth-round pick from the Rams. It just doesn't seem like it would be that much worth it. And, going to Sanchez, we saw him for the second half of last year. He went 4-4. He looked like a 4-4 quarterback. I mean, I just don't know that you're really going to, save this season by having Mark Sanchez go there and play quarterback. So I would probably take the shot with Bradford. You're in this far. You might as well see how it shakes out. If it does work out, you have a huge decision to make about a contract for him. If it doesn't work out, at least you'll know, at least if he goes somewhere else next year and looks really good, it won't be like you didn't know what you had in this offense. You can just, basically clear your books to Sam Bradford one way or another, and that's probably better than a fourth-round pick.
Yeah, I guess, the thinking would be, as Chip Kelly, the GM, saying, well, I get a fourth-round pick. I would then have 2 fourth-round picks. I already have 2 third-round picks. Maybe having that extra fourth helps them maybe be able to get back into the third, or maybe move a third and a fourth to get back into the second. Obviously, having that extra pick, I agree with you that the fourth-round pick might not be worth it, but having the flexibility to do something rather than just let him walk for nothing. And that's only if you've made the decision that he's not your guy in 2016.
Yeah, I agree. No, those are good thoughts. I mean, there is value in a fourth-round pick, and like I said, there's ways to turn that into more. It's possible. And I guess I would, if you get some truth serum into Kelly or get a peek into what he actually thinks here, and he really feels like, hey, this is it. This was a bad move. I need another quarterback. I need a real guy. Whoever that's going to be going forward. Then at that point, you might as well. The other trouble you run into though is you would basically be pulling the rug on Bradford, and then if Mark Sanchez, pulls a hamstring in week 11, and you got to let Bradford play again, and he gets up over that 50% mark, which is going to be pretty close to having played 7 of the 16 games.
Right.
I mean, you don't have any margin for error there unless you're going to play Thad Lewis, which I really don't want to see. If I had to watch every one of these games, I really don't want to spend them watching Thad Lewis run the Eagles offense personally. But if Kelly's really decided for sure about Bradford, I don't know that he has yet. He's got to say the things that he is saying. If you're going to start Bradford, you've got to sound sure, like you don't have any doubts about him. That makes sense to me if that's the case. But if you're really sure that he's not going to be your guy, and at that point, when he decided that with Vic, he stopped talking about Vic's our guy, Vic's our quarterback, and Nick Foles became the quarterback like overnight. That happened around this time of the year in Kelly's first season. So, he can make that call. He can make that decision. But when he does, it'll be sudden. It'll be just like, we'll go out to practice one day, and Sanchez will be taking the first reps with the ones, and that'll be the first word probably we get that Kelly's made that decision.
Yeah, and obviously he has said that he's very pleased with Sam and that Sam was the quarterback moving forward here. So obviously Chip seems like he has seen some positives enough from Sam that it is very definitive when he answers the questions regarding the quarterback spot. Phil Sheridan has more on the Eagles at the bye, including a good piece on Chip Kelly and the Chip Kelly revolution in the NFL. Take a look at that over at ESPN.com, NFL Nation. Of course, Phil on Wednesdays here with us on 97.3. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Mike.